Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches, which are the lost souls that God has sent us to reach out to? And so this is really just in the backdrop of why we are concerned about our finances, why we want to share this with you. I think as individuals, we have a responsibility and we are accountable to God with everything that is entrusted in us. And everything that comes into the church, we as a leadership are also accountable to God for that. But we're not just accountable to God, but we're accountable to you also. I just want to go through the budget very briefly. Don't want to take too long as well, just to give you the important parts. This is just a breakdown. Excuse me that I can't count very well. After 12 comes 13, not 14. But this is just a list of the basic, or should I say the majority of what we spend on and what our budget is based on. So the total budget for the year is 1.7 million. I don't want to go through each line, but just give you the overview and how this actually pans out. So we've just created two different categories of those 13 expenses that I showed on the previous slide, 12 expenses actually. And we decided to categorize them in two just so that I can explain this in an easy and quick way. So we've got our ministerial expenses, which is line number 2, which is the high part of the breakdown. And this just explains our vision, because our ministerial expenses really have to do with us being able to be fully available to all the families that are part of us, and for us to be able to reach out new families. All the activities and all the functions that we held together so that we can spend time together. Also, I'm just remembering that when God first created the Old Testament church, the Levites were not allowed to work. They actually had to focus on ministry. And so this type of way that we've apportioned the budget allows us to have people that will focus on ministry and focus on the needs of God's sheep within the church. And then the church expenses in item number 1 basically is just the running of the church, the basic materials that we need. Maybe if I can just say, like your music ministry and the admin and all those type of things. So 86% of our budget is basically what goes to our main focus of what we feel we are called to do as a church and what the leadership is called to do, and to support the vision of bringing multiple families together to worship God and just to follow Christ together. In Joburg, it's not very easy to reach different cultures and just get a multicultural mix. And so it does take quite a bit of effort. Obviously, one would ask, how do we raise 1.7 million? We are quite a small church, but amazingly enough, we raise quite a significant amount of that money. And a lot of it comes internally. I think when we first started, we didn't have a 46% coverage of what comes into our account. I actually want to give you all a hand, because most of this comes from the pledges that we got, and people were actually sticking to their pledges and have committed to give to the church on a monthly basis. And some give by tithing. We all know tithing is 10%, but we have a guide here that if you could give 5% of your income. And so we've got quite a number of people here who have been members of the church. Some are not necessarily members, but do feel at home here and do contribute on a monthly basis. So that 517,000 is an annual projection. We have just completed our first month in our financial year, which starts on the 1st of March. And so we haven't collected the 517, but this is commitment, and this is based on what we have been collecting, which is about 42,000 a month from those commitments. And then there has been a number of people who just come in and say, hey, I've got a bonus, or I have some savings, or I have whatever resources that I'd like to share in the church. We had one individual who also gave us 150,000. And so that makes up the internal giving. And that is 46%. And then as part of the 1.7 million that I showed earlier on as well, when I said the larger portion goes to making sure that the vision is carried through. Part of that is also looking out to external donors who can understand our vision and believe in it and support it financially. And that has borne fruit, because from those conversations and from those networks, we've been able to raise 798,000 Rand. And that was paid in March as well. It takes some following up as well. You know, people make pledges, and sometimes you got to remind them of that pledge. And so God has really been moving. He's been touching hearts internally, externally, been guiding people to really give. And for me, it's just not to say that everything has to go well, but it does give me the comfort and confidence that God is guiding us through, God is moving, and He is in support of what we are doing. Like I'm saying, if we have a dry season, it doesn't mean it's not in support, but it does give some encouragement. So the total so far is 84% of the budget that is covered. So we still need to raise, if my maths is right, that's 16%. But I believe it will come through. What I haven't included here is the offering, which we usually take during the service on a Sunday. It makes up about 2,000-3,000 a month. It fluctuates. But the reason why I didn't add it here is because that goes directly to diaconal needs. As a church, we find it very important as well just to provide support, especially to the core families and those who just need some assistance. After COVID, a lot of people have had unstable income and have had a lot of challenges. And so those diaconal needs go towards that. Just to thank you, because sometimes when there are some ad hoc needs, we usually ask for people to give to that. And people have been faithful in doing that. So I haven't included that in here because that just goes directly to those needs. Just to emphasize a couple of points. The first one is that a majority of the money is really to support the vision. We want to make sure that we've got people full-time focusing on dealing with the various families. Thank you for providing that contribution that you've been making towards that, so that we basically that the budget is for that ministry support, and then obviously for diaconal needs. And just to encourage you as well, 50 Rand, 100 Rand, maybe you haven't committed yet, but just anything, when you put everything together, it really comes to a large amount and it goes a long way. Point number 3, we do have a detailed document on giving, and that just explains on how we approach giving and how you can give. In case also you've got other people who are not necessarily in the church, but could provide some support financially as well. Number 4, one important thing for all of us is to realize that CCC is currently being planted with a lot of support from GKR, and we're very grateful for the support that they've provided us. We're very thankful. But I think just as we're all raising kids, at some point you want to see your child being independent. And so a lot of this financing is also just to stabilize us and to make us independent. Currently, they also provide a lot of financial oversight, so we are accountable to the financial committee. And because I've given you a summary of all of this, and I haven't gone into the details of it, please feel free to talk to me or any of the elders. We have the details of what's going on in the bank account and what's happening from a financial statement perspective, and we can share that with you. It is confidential information, but it's information for you to see because you are part of us. It's not restricted to you. Don't hesitate to ask any questions. Now, just to end this off, I thought I should just share what question 5 in the Heidelberg Catechism says, and I think it was already in our liturgy. It says, "What do you understand by the communion of saints?" And the answer is that believers as members of Christ are partakers of Him and all of His treasures and gifts. Everyone must know himself bound, or herself, bound to employ his or her gifts readily and cheerfully for the advantage and salvation of other members. And so just to say that everything that God entrusts, we are stewards of God's wealth and God's children. And so when we give cheerfully. And one thing I like about being in this church is that nobody drums in my head or begs me or makes me feel guilty for not giving. And I think that's one thing we can all appreciate. But it really should come from the heart. We are a family of servants on a mission to win souls. We are here to love each other and to love each other well. We want to share our gifts and treasures as we journey together in following Christ. And so that's just to thank you and to encourage you to keep giving. Just know that this is not just something that we're asking you to do, but it also really is part of who we are in Christ.